The following program does not necessarily reflect the opinions and viewpoints of the staff and management of this station.
Welcome to the wonderful world of seniors, the best of all worlds. You now have the time, resources, and ability to enjoy what you have worked for all your life. So let's explore the many possibilities available to seniors on Senior World Radio. Senior World Radio is your source for senior citizens-related topics, information, and entertainment. Now, here is your host of Senior World Radio, Glenn Howard.
For the past several months, we've been talking to a group of seniors. We call them Oklahoma's incredible seniors. People who range anywhere from 55, 60, up to 100 years of age, with some very interesting stories. We've talked to some old farmers. We've talked to a lot of military people. I remember the lady who was really kind of responsible for helping get the Dale Evans school started up here on 23rd Street. Talked to a lady way up in Woodward, Oklahoma, who had gone through the biggest tornado in the history of Oklahoma. And it's just been a lot of fun talking to seniors who have interesting experiences and interesting stories to tell. And let me say, I appreciate so much those of you who are calling. I'm getting several phone calls right now. People calling up and saying, hey, you need to talk to, and giving me a name and phone number of someone. In fact, I just got a call this past week, said there's a couple down in Purcell you need to talk to. Said they were sweethearts and the military separated them, and after being separated, they both finally settled for somebody else, got married for a time, but later in life lost their spouse and decided to look each other up again, and the romance was still alive. Said it's a story that ought to be a movie. Give them a call and tell them about it, or let them tell you about it. So I'm giving them a call, going to try to get involved and visit with them. And I appreciate so much you're doing this. Let me give you my phone number. Grab a pencil and a paper and write down my phone number. And if you get a chance, give me a phone call and tell me about a senior that's got a story that you'd like to get on the air. Let me go out and talk with them. I can bring them in here to the studio, or we can go out with the equipment to their home or retirement center or wherever they live and get their story and put it on the air, because we want to share these wonderful stories that seniors have to tell. These what we're calling the incredible seniors right here in Oklahoma. Now, my phone number, please write it down, is 877-875-0990. Let me give it to you again. It's a watch number you can call from any place in the state of Oklahoma at absolutely no cost. That's 877-875-0990. When you call, you're going to get a answering machine that's going to record the information you want to give me, and I'll get in touch with them and give them a call, and we'll try to get their story on the air. But, you know, as we often say, it's a great time to be a senior, because seniors today are living longer. They've got better health, more resources, greater opportunities than any group in history. And it's just a wonderful time. In fact, I think when we start talking about the wonderful world of seniors, I think we make some younger people jealous, saying, wow, I wish I could be a senior. There's a whole lot more benefits to being a senior than just getting a senior discount. But you know, there are some seniors who, along the way, life throws them a curve. They wind up with a few difficulties, a few lemons, and some real frustrations. And I think probably the meaning of life often comes in the way they handle their difficulties and how they dig themselves out of a hole that their circumstances may have thrust them into. I met a gentleman like that here the other day, was visiting with him, had coffee with him. He, in fact, my brother introduced me to him. We were having coffee together, and this gentleman came in. We had a chance to visit a little bit, and he had a very interesting story to tell about what he was doing. And I found out more from my brother that in the process of his frustration and difficulties, he had learned how not only to survive, but how to reach out and provide support and help to other people. And after retirement, had really developed a ministry of caring for people that all came about because of the problems that he was experiencing with his family. So I invite him out to the station, where he's sitting right here in the studio with me this morning. His name is Stan Gilbertson. Stan, I'm so glad you came in and gave us a chance to visit together a little bit this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to have you. Let's begin, first of all, with your background. Are you a native Oklahoman?
Yes, I grew, no, in a way, I grew up to 8th grade in Michigan, and I've been in Oklahoma since then.
I see. As soon as you got a chance to come to Oklahoma, you did it and been ever since.
That's right. My mother's native, and she moved back.
I see. Okay. And at the 8th grade, you say, when you come to Oklahoma?
Yes.
Attended school here, I guess?
Yes.
And then what?
Well, I graduated over here in Dale City,
Okay.
and then shortly thereafter, I went into the military, and that started my adult life. In the 60s, I spent 4 years in the military, and
What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Army.
In the Army.
Yes.
Serve overseas?
Yes. Both Europe and then in short deal in Vietnam.
Ah, so you were one of those that got a chance to see Vietnam as well.
See it and smell it.
Right. Came back home and got into what kind of business?
Well, when I came back, I went to work for a company called National Cash Register, NCR.
That's a pretty nice company. In fact,
Yeah.
I've got a son down in Atlanta, Georgia, working for that company.
They've changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
And when I went to work for them, that was the days when everything from accounting machines, bookkeeping machines, everything was mechanical. And there wasn't much electronic at that time. And it was very fortunate that, they're in the early 70s and things, as they were getting into the computer business and electronics, gave me an opportunity to get involved in an area like that and tag along and get a lot of education and skills. So
How long were you with them?
11 years.
11 years. And then, if I understand correctly, you, after you left them, decided you were going to build your own business. And what did you do?
Okay, there's three of us left and started a business, and we started a business, and then instead of being cash registers, it's called point of sale. Basically electronic cash registers. And we had some vendors that we did business with and we pretty much the state of Oklahoma and certain vocations like grocery stores and restaurants and other retail type environments. And then later on, we got more in depth in a small computer. Nowadays they call it a PC.
Right.
But then it was a business computer that we were trying to sell, So, the world just keeps advancing in leaps and bounds. So
Getting smaller.
yeah.
Electronically, that's for sure.
Well,
So up to this point, your career was just basically a middle-class American success story. Moved from the big corporation to being self-employed. Everything is going well, and then all of a sudden, I understand your life began to change when your wife's health took a turn for the worse.
well, that company, I was running it in 2000 in 2001. Partners have retired, and so I was left running it in 2001. And I was making some moves, some a little bit risky moves, when 9/11 happened, and so I had a lot of resources involved in some things that hadn't started to pay dividends yet. And then, of course, business stopped for 6-8 months after 9/11 for all practical purposes, in which that put me on the downside of finances and things, and I was working real hard. And my wife started getting a little sick around that time. And then by 2005, early 2005, I had to close the company down because I could never quite get it going again.
Right.
And my wife then, end of 2005, got very sick. I come home one Friday
Now,
night.
did she have cancer?
No, she had COPD.
COPD. That's
Yeah.
getting a lot of attention anymore.
Yeah, she was a smoker, and she quit smoking in actually 2001, but it was
The
too
damage
late.
had already been done. huh?
Yeah, the damage had been done to her lungs. And so I come home on a Friday night, and it was late Friday night, about 10 o'clock or so, and she was non-responsive and everything. So I called an ambulance, and she went in the hospital, and the ER doctor said, if you got family, you ought to call them in, because now this is 10 o'clock at night, or by that time it was 11 or 12. You need to call the family because you won't see the sunrise.
Wow.
And so my daughters are already on their way down and things, and family. And make a long story short, she did see the sunrise, but she had double pneumonia, and her blood had gone septic. And, the outlook was pretty grim for a few days there. But God, prayers, and God, He kept her around for a long time. I had to learn, to make a long story short, we, had to learn a lot about how to take care of a person that all of a sudden can't take care of themselves. I didn't have the money resources left to have a full-time or even part-time nursing help. So between my daughters and but basically me full-time, I took care of my wife. And the doctors are always giving us a grim outlook about how much longer she had, but she survived 8.5 years after that.
So doctors say one day, and you make it 8.5 years.
That's right. And I spent a lot of time developing techniques and skills, and I mean, praying to God all the time, when she'd have a problem, and the doctors, would prescribe something that didn't seem to be working very well, and it seemed like I could sit down and start reading, and boom, there'd be the answer. So I think God was constantly putting the answers in front of me to help out.
Now, you were in the hospital for quite a few, months or years? How long?
Well, the first time she was in there for 4 months before she could come out. And then she was back in for one reason or another almost every year after that for approximately 4 days to a week with either pneumonia, but not to that level, or some other things. And, learned a lot of things. Every time you have pneumonia, they pump you full of antibiotics. Well, when you're full of antibiotics, then that kills all the bacteria in your body, but it doesn't kill the fungus or whatever you want to call it, that in your body, and that gives that a chance to grow. And then you got to fight that afterwards. And I found some things that worked that were just homeopathic, if you want to call it that, doctors were just amazed how well it was. And Kathy and we learned a lot during that period of time, when I was taking care of her. I had to, for 8.5 years, I got up every 3 hours and checked on her, and
But all the process gave you an opportunity to really begin to develop a ministry that I want to talk more about that. Stan, right now, we got to take a break. I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio, visiting with Stan Gilbertson. Stan's a guy who, through the problems and frustrations of trying to care for our family members in their sickness, developed a ministry of sharing and caring with others. And I just thought it was a good story that you would enjoy hearing about. So we're going to be coming right back, so please stay right here with me.
You're nobody till somebody loves you.
Have you ever had a problem, but it seemed like there was no one who could help? You spent hours calling around, being referred from one place to the next. Well, not anymore. I want to tell you about a free and easy-to-use service in Oklahoma. 211 is a simple 3-digit phone number to get help or to give help when you don't know where to turn. Dialing 211 only takes a minute, and you are connected with a caring Oklahoman who will help you find the assistance you've been looking for. With access to over 13,000 programs, Heartline 211 can connect you to local resources for many different needs, including health care, food, counseling, rent assistance, disability assistance, job services, and much more. 211 is a service of Heartline, a United Way partner agency. 211, the right first call to get help or give help 24 hours a day.
Hi, my name's Jason Ledlow, president of UT Phone, the ultimate telephone service. We're proud to be a sponsor of Senior World Radio with Glenn Howard. UT Phone is dedicated to providing Oklahomans affordable telephone service all across our great state. We have Lifeline Home Phone service starting at just $1.95. That's right, just $1.95, and most of Oklahoma's seniors qualify for this reduced home phone service. They get to keep their old home phone number, and it even includes long distance. Another great feature of UT Phone's customers really like is that it includes repair service. That's right, any repairs at no additional charge. With many telephone services charging $40 to $50 per month, it makes sense to switch your service to UT Phone. This service is a federal program that is provided through the Universal Service Fund. There is only one per household, so make it UT Phone's home phone service for $1.95. Give us a call at 800-996-0098. Again, call 800-996-0098.
I've made up my mind.
Welcome back to Senior World Radio. I'm Glenn Howard, visiting today with Stan Gilbertson. Stan was with the Army, went to Vietnam, spent some time in Europe, went to the typical route of a good businessman, worked with a major company, started his own company, everything going well until his wife came down with a disease called COPD. During that time, he was in the hospital with her for months at a time and began to develop a ministry of sharing with others as he went through those difficult times. And I just thought it was a story that you ought to hear. Stan, not only did you have the difficulty with your wife, and in fact, you did lose her, didn't you?
Yes, a year ago.
A year ago. And then about the time you feel like you've got that one under control, your grandson, was it, that came down with
Thyroid cancer.
Thyroid cancer.
Right. And he just got operated on a month ago.
And if I understand correctly, that was an incredibly long, difficult surgery. How long was that surgery?
Well, he was on the operating table for 16 hours straight.
Wow.
And the surgery came out well. The problem of it is when you're on the operating table, period, you don't move. It's not like being asleep where you'll twitch and move and everything else. So you're laying totally 100% still. So you get pressure problems on your back.
How old was your grandson?
25.
25.
And he's still having problems with his arms because they call it compressed nerves in his shoulders and elbow where they just laid,
All right.
and causing a numbness that they say will come back, but like I say, in a month they're still having problems.
Stan, now in going through something like this, when you're setting up there with your wife and 8.5 years watching her deteriorate and finally losing her, seeing your son go through this, how do you keep from wanting to dig a hole and crawl in it and pull it in after you? How do you keep your spirits up?
All I can say is God. I mean, I give it to God. You know, every day I start the day praying, God, give me enough strength to make through today. I'm not asking for tomorrow. I'm not asking for the century. I'm just asking for today. And he does. He does.
One day at a time.
Yeah, he does. You know, so if things get to piling up, I turn around and say, God, I've carried as much as I can. You got to carry it for a while, and he will.
Yeah, but this got you into sharing with other people. How did that happen? I mean,
well,
when you go to the hospital, you hope people come by and visit with you, but you don't go up there expecting to try to solve everybody else's problem.
Well, every time I'd go to the hospital, be in a hospital, I'd take my Bible with me. And I got where I'd go to the family room of ICU or, you know, wherever Kathy was when she was in a hospital, and I'd go in there and sit and read my Bible. Well, the Bible is a very recognizable placard, if you want to look at it that way, and people who are having personal crises with family members and things in the hospital would come in and ask me if I'd pray for them. And I would. And so this went forward while she was alive. Then after she was gone, about 2 months or so after she passed away, not knowing what else to do with my time, because here I've been busy every 2 or 3 hours with her for a long time, I started going back to the hospitals, to the family rooms with a Bible and sitting there. And when anybody wanted me to, I would pray with them and talk with them and visit with them. And a lot of them, you know, just they were at their wits' end because of a family member or whatever. There's several stories, you know. A lot of people have a hard time believing in miracles, but I've seen miracles. I have seen miracles. I haven't done miracles, but I've seen them. And miracles do happen. People live through things that the doctors say they can't, you know. And that's amazing. I seen a young lady that was in a car accident, and she was T-boned on the side, and the door hit her in the head, and supposedly had brain damage. She was basically, doctors hated the term brain dead, but had no conscious deal when they hook up all the wires and things, and she was in the hospital for about a week that way. And I talked to her dad once, you know, prayed with him, and 3 or 4 days later I come back, and he come see me, and he come out there and wanted me to pray for her, and he said, "Will you come in her room and pray for her?" And they were talking to him about already removing her from life support and everything, from organ donating and everything else. And I said, "Sure." So I went in there, and we're praying, and I don't know why, I just put my hand on her forehead, and I said, "Open your eyes." And she opened her eyes. Now, doctors have all kinds of reasons why that happened. But to me, it was just a miracle right then. And you know, and I've learned a lot of things from those kind of things. For whatever reason, I don't fear that involvement anymore because of my wife and being spend up there. It is difficult when you deal with other people's emotions and fears and agony and things, but you know, that's life. I mean, it happens to all of us.
I'm Glenn Howard, visiting with Stan Gilbertson. Stan Gilbertson was a gentleman who, very typical, had a career with a large corporation, went into business for himself. Things were going well until his wife came down with a horrible disease called COPD. And over the next 8 years, he watched her literally deteriorate and finally lost her. But in that process, sitting in the hospital, Stan, I don't know. I've never been in that position. Yes, I've lost my folks, but you know, they were both in the 90s, and it was a relatively short thing. But to sit there for 8.5 years watching a person deteriorate, it would seem to me I would tend to become so pessimistic, so depressed, discouraged, or whatever. But to see you beginning to, simply by reading your Bible, reach out to other people. In fact, I guess in most cases they were initiating the action by coming to you because you were sitting there reading your Bible.
Exactly.
So you weren't going out knocking room doors or talking to people or anything else. You're sitting there reading your Bible for encouragement for yourself, and they'd come up and start talking to you. And then as you begin to pray for them, things begin to happen.
Yes, at least here in this country, the Bible is a very recognizable item, and so if you're sitting there praying and not being, I'm going to say, obnoxious, with people and things, a lot of people will come to you, starting out for comfort and prayer, and then as you get to know them, you can talk to them, and a lot of things happen. Like that one miracle. I learned that it wasn't a miracle for the girl. The girl received the miracle, but the miracle was for the dad. Miracles are the only real proof we have. I mean, empirical proof, I should say, of God's existence. And although he went to church, he was probably closer to being an agnostic than he was a Christian. But now he's a Christian.
Stan, I think it's so interesting. You're not a minister. You've never been to seminary. You've never called yourself a minister. And yet you have found a way of ministering to people simply by praying for them in their time of need as you were going through your own time of need. I think that's incredible. I'm just delighted to see that kind of ministry taking place. And to realize that so many times we start talking about religion, we get to arguing about theology and who's right and who's wrong and everything else. The fact is, to simply have somebody who is concerned, who is willing to share their faith, to answer questions. Maybe it's to be there. I guess one of the greatest things about you is the fact that you had to be in the hospital anyway, and so to sit there in the waiting room with your Bible reading and being available, approachable, was one of the great miracles of your life, your ministry.
I mean, you kind of said it. I don't want to ever argue religion with anybody.
Right.
I don't understand some of it enough to argue about it. But, there's one deal in the Bible where it says that Jesus said the most important laws is love God and love others.
Yep.
Well, I just kind of ignore everything else.
and to get those two right, everything else okay, isn't it?
Yes, I figured if I work on those, it's all going to work out. And loving others, when you comfort somebody, or you love them for, whatever, here, I think in this country, the concept of loving others, we try to make it much more gregarious than what it really is. I mean, it's loving others is just
Make it something you do more than something you are, maybe.
That's right. People are people. Treat them as people. Smile at them.
Well, Stan, I want you to know that we're sure praying with you for your grandson. I know this 16 hours of surgery on thyroid is a major surgery.
Yeah, he starts he starts radiation treatments next week.
Okay.
And they think it's only going to be one treatment, and it's going to be the radioactive iodine, since it was the thyroid.
I see.
So we've got to wait a week after that, then they'll do a CAT scan to see if it's all gone.
Well, Stan, I truly think that you are one of Oklahoma's incredible seniors, not because of any fantastic thing you've done, but simply because you were there and willing to share who you were, really more than what you know, with other people. And when people do walk through very difficult times in life, to be able to realize that God is greater than they are and can work through them, and a common, ordinary guy can really perform miracles in the lives of other people if you're willing to do it. Hey, we got to go. Time is up. Stan, I'd like to talk some more, but we can't do it. This show's got to end. I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio, visiting with Stan Gilbertson. Hey, give me a call if you know somebody that you'd like to recommend for one of our shows. We'd like to interview them. Just call me at 877-875-0990. We got to get out of here, though, and see you again this same time next week. Until then, love everybody you see, be kind to everybody, and do something good, especially for yourself. See you next week now. Bye-bye.
I'm on the top of the world looking down on creation.